Hello guys, welcome to MindMajix, and in this special session our trainer will explain everything you need to know about the TIBCO BW. Before beginning the session, let's look at the topics you will cover in this video. We shall start with file activities and continue with receive notification, HTTP, TCP, and end this session with general activities. Please check the caption to jump between the topics. If you are new to the MindMajix channel, please subscribe and press the bell icon to get quick updates about the new tech tutorials, free webinars, and career-enhancing shorts from working professionals. Like and share the video with your friends and career aspirants. Without any further delay, let's start the video.
Hi all, welcome back to another session of TIBCO BusinessWorks 6 Fundamentals. So now in our last session we have seen the installation, how we can install, and what are the overview of what is EA concept, what are the different products of TIBCO, and what is that versions of TIBCO, and what is that which we are going to discuss during this series of fundamentals. And we have seen simple uh, process creation, uh, project creation, as well as few of the file activities, right? So hope you are able to create process using the other file activities, like we have used activities like create file, read file, and write file, right? So there are other types of file activities which you can use. They're quite easy, just the name such as copy file is there, which will copy the files from one location to another location, or the not just the files, it will copy the directories as well. You can just give a try with that. There is something called file poller, which is very important. Okay, let's discuss that. And going to the other activities, we have a remove file, which will remove the file from a particular directory. We have to give the location. Okay, so here we have a remove file is there, and the input tab we just need to give the file name from a directory, and the file name, so the file will be removed by using the remove file. Similarly, we have something called rename file is there. So this is also again, this will rename the existing files. Let us say I have file name called abc.txt. I want to rename it to um, cbd.txt. So I can use this rename file activity and we can rename it. Similarly, wait for file change is there. This activity, as well as the file poller activity, these will execute the process when a particular event was happened. Okay, so we'll see that in detail. Let's see the file poller activity. So there's one more thing called list files, right? So list files is something like which will list you all the files that were present in a specified directory. Let us say you are giving a directory called abc, which is having 10 files. So if you use the list files and list files activity and give that particular directory, then it will show you the 10 files in a list. So that is about the list files. Okay, so these are very simple and straightforward, which you can directly try give a try. uh, for now, let's see the file poller activity. Okay, so let me try to add a file poller here. Add activity and file poller. Okay, so basically you see the timer activity and file poller activity. There is this start icon, right? There is a start icon. Okay, if you see, there is a green color start kind of a button available on these two activities, right? So that means wherever you see this kind of start or play button kind of a thing on any activity, they are called the starter activities. You can have only one starter activity. You can have only one starter activity per process. Okay, we cannot have multiple starter activities in each process. So as of now, I don't want to use multiple as we cannot use multiple starters in the same process. I'm not keeping it here. I'll be creating a new process definition. Sorry, new process. So when I say process definition, that is with respect to BW5. Okay, since we work on both BW5 and BW6, so I sometimes I may get some terms from BW5. Okay, so BW BusinessWorks process is what we need to create. Let us say I'll name it as file folder. Just a second. Yeah, sorry. So in the file folder process, I'll be adding an activity called file folder activity file folder. So in this file folder, if you see, it is asking you for the file name, right? So either you can give the file name here, or okay, this doesn't have the input tab. So generally in BW5, we have to provide the file name here or in the input tab as well. In this here we don't have the input tab, so we can directly give the file name or the directory name here itself. Okay, so let us say in our case, which is the location. Let's say this is the location. Okay, I'm dealing with this location. Okay, so I'll do this files. Okay, and in this directory, what I want is in this particular location, any change that happens, okay, in case of any change that is happening with any file or any new addition or any new modification of existing file or deletion, I want this process to be executed. Okay, so to show that, let me just add another log file as well as exit activity, basic activities and exit. So here in the log file input, I'll write something process started. Okay, in the file folder, as we have given this location, it will fetch the information from that location. It will start the process as and when there is a change happen in this particular location. So if you come to the advanced tab, so what are the events that this file folder will consider for starting this process, right? So the events are create event, modify event, and delete event. Create event means when there is any new file created in that directory, in this directory, when there is any new file that has been created, or any modification to the existing file, or deletion of any existing files from that particular directory. Okay, any of these things happens, then immediately the file folder will start a new process, or not new process, it will execute this process definition. Okay, so let us say let's start this, and I don't have any error now. If I run it, file folder is what I want to run. But see, it says that business started BW application, but it has not started anything because no change or delete or modification has not happened in this folder. Let us say now what I'll do, I will create a new document. Okay, see, it says that access denied, but you see, the moment I created a new file, this process has been started, right? It keeps starting for every 5 seconds because of the polling interval is there here. Let me just stop it. File folder, the polling interval is there because of this polling interval, it is starting for every 5 seconds. Seems like this doesn't have access. Okay, so if you see the debug and the console log, it says that the files was not found due to fault, access denied. Okay, due to some access issue, file folder activity is not able to access this particular location. Okay, let me try again, because I just added that star, so that this time it will look into that particular folder. Now you see, I deleted one file from this location. Okay, you see the previous failure reason, and now it got executed, right? Previously, what happened is, here in the file folder, I have just given this like this, right? What this means is, a star means, because this backward slash represents that it will go into this folder. Okay, go into the files folder, and star means it will look for any type of the file, all types of all kinds of files. So now if you see, if I run it again, it has started the BW application. And if I come here, and let me say that I will try to add a new Excel sheet. You see, the moment I have added, it has started the process, right? The process has been completed. Just the file folder started, and log file, it says process started, and we can see end-to-end process has been executed. So again, if I say, let us say now it was executed once, right? If I do delete this, okay, you see, I deleted this, and immediately a new process has been executed. New job has been created. Similarly, let us say I'll open this, and I'll say hello TIBCO. I saved a file. You see, I saved a file, immediately another job has been created. So all these kind of events, create, delete, or modification of any type of files, or deletion of a file, creation of a file, or update or modification of the file content or file in that particular directory, this file poller activity will poll the process. If you see as a separate jobs, you see the job ID, right? BW0A100 is one job ID, 101 and 102. These are three different jobs that were created for three different events. Okay, first one is for create, second one when we deleted a file from the location, as well as third one when we modified the file, right? So this is pretty much about file polar. So if you were asked any question like what is file polar, you can say that file polar is a starter activity which will poll the process when there is any change in the when the in these events. Whenever these events occurs with respect to this particular location or a directory that was given, during that time, this file poller activity will poll the process or create a new job in the particular for the particular process. Okay, so this is about file poller. Similarly, since we have done the file poller, let's see few of the starter activities whatever we are having. Okay, so if you go to the general activities, this timer activity is something which we keep using. Okay, this is one of the starter activity. As you already know, this timer activity is used as a starter activity, or you can use it as a scheduler, job scheduler. Okay, so let us say that, okay, rather than here, let me just create a new um, in this place there is an option called run once, right? Here if I remove the run once option, it is asking me for the time interval, right? I can give the time interval, like if let us say that um, my requirement is to run the process for every 5 seconds. Okay, for every 5 seconds I can give the interval as 5 seconds, and interval unit is second. So if I execute this process now, it will keep running this particular process for every 5 seconds. Let's see. See now, it has started once, second time, and again in 5 seconds it will start for the third time, and again in 5 seconds another process will be executed. So this is like you can schedule the job as per your requirement. Okay, so your requirement is like you want a process to be executed every 1 hour, or every 2 hours, or once in a day, or once in a week. You will have the option to start your process um, as per your requirement. Now you see it keep on creating a new process for every 5 seconds, because 5 seconds is interval what we have configured there. Okay, let's go back to the timer process timer activity and see the other options whatever we have. Okay, here is the interval. Okay, you can give whatever you want. Okay, so here let us say I want to execute the process for every 1 hour, so I can change this. So similarly, not just seconds, minutes, and hours. You have once per day, or any number of times per day, uh, per week, month, and year. Based on your requirement, you can just select this option and configure it. So end after is, so here always we'll always have the never option checked. But if you want this process to be executed for this many number of occurrences, you can give the number of occurrences that you want. Okay, let us say I want this process to be executed 100 times for every 5 seconds. So after this after the process has been executed for 100 times, this process will stop. It will not any execute any further. Similarly, end time is there. Okay, so this is the start time. This process will start for every 1 hour starting this time, and we can make it stop, right? We can make it stop by, we can make it stop by 17th June. Sorry, today's Sunday 19th, right? Okay, 20th June, 20th June 2020. Starting this time, it will run for every 1 hour till 20th June 2020. Okay, so this is about the timer activity. This is another starter activity. Similarly, we have few other activities like in the general activities itself, we have receive notification. Okay, receive notification is another starter activity, which we cannot discuss it now, because this will be using this when we are discussing the process synchronization, or we can say the inter-process communication. Okay, this is another, because you should know what are the starter activities available in TIBCO, because that's one of the common interview question. Can you give me a list of starter activities? Okay, so in the general activities tab, we have this timer activity, receive notification, are the as and on notification timeout are the starter activities. And there are a lot of other starter activities. They are like in the HTTP. In the HTTP panel, we have something called HTTP Receiver. This will start this process whenever there is any request received on this HTTP receiver. Similarly, in the JMS, we have something called JMS receive message. Okay, JMS receive message is one activity which is a starter one. Okay. Is a TCP receiver. So wherever you see the receiver activities, so they will be the starter activities. Okay, you can just go through these all the activities. You just browse all the activities. What are the type names of the activities? Then you see there is receive is there. So this is again one of the starter activity. So we'll be using all these starter activities as per your requirement. Wherever you are required to use the receive activity, or when you are dealing with the HTTP based applications, you should be using the HTTP receiver activities. So all these things you will get to know just by practicing. Okay, so since we have seen few. Okay, we have seen the starter activity. So let's just see now let's see the groups that were available in TIBCO. Okay, or before going to groups, let me just show you a few of the general activities which are very important. Okay, so I'm not stressing further on the file activities because since this is a fundamental, let's not waste time on discussing only the file activities. Okay, I'll be creating a new package here just for general. So here we'll be discussing about the general activities because we have the different palettes in TIBCO, out of which general activities is one package kind of a folder which will um, have multiple activities which are called general activities. Okay, let it be processed only. Okay, not an issue. So if I come here, come to the general activities tab and see there are a lot of these all our activities are present, right? So these are activity we use in combination with the different types of projects or the processes. Okay, so it's not that if you are dealing with a file activity, so you'll be using the, so if you are dealing with a process which deals with the files, so you'll be using the file activity. Similarly, if you are having if you are getting HTTP requests or something, you'll be using the HTTP activities. Or if you are dealing with the databases, you will be using the JDBC activities. Similarly, if you are using the messaging system for your process, you will be using the JMS activities. So here, all these type of palettes are for particular function. Okay, JMS will be used for messaging, JDBC will be used for the database interaction, or HTTP will be used when you're creating a process as HTTP service or when you're trying to reach another HTTP service. But these general activities are something which will be used in combination with all types of activities. Okay, you can use the call process activity in in a process with JDBC activities or JMS activities or HTTP activities. So what I mean is these general activities are something which can be used in any type of process, and the most commonly used activities from the general activities are kind of mapper activity is very important, and log is another important thing, and sleep activity, assign activity, call process. Okay, these are the most common activities which we'll be using from the general activities tab. We'll see that one by one. Okay, so we have these activities, right? Wait for notification, receive notification, notify, and or notify on timeout. So these will be useful for the inter-process communication, or we can say process synchronization. Okay, we'll see that at later point of time, but now we'll see these activities: assign, call process, and inspector, log, mapper, sleep. We already seen the timer activity. We don't want to I don't want to waste time on that. We'll see the remaining activities. Okay, first thing is that let's go to the mapper activity. Okay, so let me just add a general activity and mapper. So what is a mapper? It says a mapper, right? It will map something, right? What is that it's going to map? As of now, if you see the input, it says no input mapping required also. So, so what is this activity? It is which is not having the input mapping also. Okay, so basically this mapper activity is something which will be used to map the incoming request, or translate the data, or beautify, or change the data as per your requirement. So you want to modify the data to something which is as per your requirement, business requirement. You can use this mapper activity. You can translate that. Okay, you have the option to use multiple functions within this activity, and you can transform that as per your requirement. Okay, so for that, the first thing, you see the general tab, there is nothing apart from the mapper name. So in the description, you can just write some short description, nothing technical with respect to the description. Just come to the input editor. So this is the place where you need to select the schema. Okay, as of now we have not created any schemas or something, so we have to create a new schema. So this is a schema which we need to create, and inside that, let me just give something like uh, let me just give something like name, sorry, spelling mistake. Name is one string is there, and another element, let us say I'll give something like city. Okay, so name and city or something I have added in this schema. So now if I general activities, say timer is something which I would require to start the process, right? So I'll use the timer activity. So every time when you add a timer activity, so in the general tab, if you see by default it will we will by default this run once will be selected. When you want to schedule this job, you have to remove this run once option. You have to provide give you change the configurations as per your requirement. But for now I want this to be run once. Okay, I want this to be run once, and I'm find this. So in the mapper activity, so earlier if you see the input, it says that no input configuration required, right? So but now after adding the schema in the input editor tab, I can see some name and city in the input. So let us say in the name I'll say something like John, and city I'll say Chicago. Okay, name and city are this. So this is how either you can give the values directly, or let us say you are receiving the request and you can pass the request from here. So to pass the request, let's say that I just add another mapper. I just made a copy of existing mapper. Okay, mapper 2. Okay, so here what I want is in the input tab, instead of passing the name and city directly, so just wanted to show you how we can map. That's why I'm adding it here. So I have removed the old mappings, and what I'll do is I want name here is John, right? I want the name to be Mr. John. Okay, and city, so let us say there are few functions. Okay, there are string functions like concat. So what is this function is doing? Returns a concatenation of arguments. You can concatenate. Concatenate means combine. Okay, so if I let us say here there is a first name and last name. Okay, first name and last name is there, so I can combine both of them using the concat function. So let us say in this case the concat is something, the function which I'll be using, and the first string would be what I want Mr., right, Mr. John, and the second string would be the name from the previous mapper, and city is I'm fine with the direct city. So this is how we can do the mapping. So because as of now we have not done any kind of XML request creation, or not expose this service to receive the XML request. That's the reason why I'm doing this kind of mapping. But once we come to the this is general, right? Why is this? There is a problem here. Problem in this process property configuration. Okay, one more thing you have to understand. So these things are here, right? So I have added for you to uh, show you the different types of starter activities. I have added the HTTP connector resource as well as the notify configuration. HTTP this one uh, notification receiver activities, right? So the moment I have added these activities in this process earlier, so it has automatically created few properties. Okay, if I come to the properties and see the process properties, you see notify configuration resource and HTTP connector resource. These properties will be auto created. You have to if you use the HTTP connector, then this value will be filled. As of now we have not used anything like that, so let's just delete it, so we'll not have any error now. You see earlier we have something in the problems tab, now the problems have been removed. Okay, let's come back to our process. Let's debug it. This is the general is the process which I want to run. If you see this mapper activity, we have passed the simple values like name and city, John and Chicago. Where in the mapper 2, I have combined, right? I have used the concat function, Mr. John. Okay. Why I added this something like the concat function and Mr. John here is that just to show you that we can use any type of functions. All these functions are there, right? So you can use any of these function as per your requirement, as well as per the schema, whatever is there. If, let us say that I have a this element as integer, and if I'm passing a string, it will fail. It will show an error, because these are the kind of things that you need to take care as a developer. While learning, you just explore all these functions available. Okay, just go one by one and see what is the um, description of this particular function. Then you will be able to make use of that function whenever it's required, or whenever you feel like using this functions, these particular functions. Okay, these are the most concat is one of the most common function almost every project will use. Okay, so string functions are important. Okay, so you can use these kind of functions here, and in the mapper activities, and you can do the changes. If you see it here, here we have the name as John, and in this mapper we have changed it as Mr. John. Okay, you can do any such functions. This is one of the simple function as of we have used as of now, but going forward we'll see if we can use other functions as well. Okay, hope you understand about the mapper activity. Okay, just don't think that since we have used only the smaller schema, don't think that we'll be using only these kind of schemas. We can add schemas with any size. Okay, if you're having a requirement that you will receive a huge request and you need to translate that or make use of that request, you will be using having a huge schema as well. We'll see the schema creation steps as well in the upcoming sessions, but as of now, to make it simple, we have used very smaller schema. Okay, is this fine? And now let's go to another activity called log. So this log is something called uh, the log itself. It says it will log the data, whatever you're logging, whatever you want to log. Basically, during the design time, this is not much required, but once the code, whatever you have developed, has been deployed on the server, right, you will not be able to understand whether the process has been executed successfully, or if there is any failure, um, or started or ended, anything like that. Or if you want to see what is the request that was received by the process, or what is that we are sending to our external application teams or anything, you can use this log activity, and using this log you can log your message. Let us say in this process I want to log something like received request for the received request for. Okay, let me do concat here also. Received request for, I'll give name. What is the name I have? John. So that once the code was deployed, and if I open the log file in the server, I'll be able to understand, okay, the process has been started and the request has been received. Okay, or I can say not received request, or I can say something like uh, process completed for this mapper. Similarly, this is I'll say this as end log, end log, and I want to take another log for the start log. Okay, in the start log, what I'll want is, instead of process completed, I'll say process started. Okay, since we don't have the mapping provided for this, it is showing an error. Okay, now you see this should be after this mapper. Okay, there is no rule that this should be after this mapper only. The only reason why I'm keeping after this mapper is I have done the mapping from this mapper. Okay, I cannot, this transition is there, right? These transitions are only unidirectional, go forward, it cannot come backward. So I cannot use this mapper activity in the log when I keep the log before the mapper activity. Okay, that's the reason why I've changed it to this location. Okay, so now if I run, save changes. Okay, somehow the start log is not coming, but if you see, this process started for John, right? In the end log, is it not coming here? John Chicago is there. Let me just do one thing, just wanted to show you. I'll add another thing again. Okay, just process started. You see, now by seeing this console, okay, so this is this is the way how this is kind of a this console is there, right? This is what you will see in the deployed code as well. Once the code was deployed, if you open the log file, this is how you will see the data inside the log file. Here, by seeing this process started, start log process started, okay, you will know that okay, the process has been started. And in the end log, after seeing this, you will see again process completed for John. Okay, just to make you aware or just to understand whether the process has been restarted or completed or failed in the middle, and if it got failed, you can set, you can give a specific messages in the logs, what's the reason for failure, anything. Okay, so the log file is most every process. Okay, make sure that whatever the process you're developing as a developer is having a log file. That is very good practice to use the log file everywhere in the process, not everywhere, wherever it's required in your processes, because that will help you to debug your code. Okay, developing the code is one thing, and after that, once the code was deployed, debugging and troubleshooting in case of any issues is most important thing. You must be able to identify the reason for any failures, or let us say someone asks you whether this particular process has been completed or it failed. You should be in a position to go to your log file and see that this process has been executed or successfully completed. Or if it got failed, you must be able to give a reason for the failure if you have the proper logging in place. Okay, so this is about the logging log file. And let us say there's another activity called central activities and sleep. So sleep is something almost which is, this is also deals with the time. So timer activity, this will run once from this time, as well as I can schedule the time as per my requirement. Sleep is something which will pause my process for particular amount of time. Okay, so if you go to the reference page, you will see the definition of a sleep activity. So the process is going on, and if you use the sleep activity and mention, you see the asynchronous activity that suspends, right, that suspend the process on the current transition for the specified time. Okay, it will suspend the process for the specific amount of time. Okay, so here let us say this process itself, I can use this. Let us say I'll use this after the start log activity. Here interval, I'll say that I want to suspend this process for 5 seconds. So here I'm giving 5,000. Okay, you know that, right? 1 second is 1,000 milliseconds, so 5 seconds is 5,000 milliseconds. So I'm giving this here. So let me run the process and see whether it's waiting for 5 seconds or not. So it it says starting, right? That means it is waiting for 5 seconds. Okay, to show you better, maybe I have to increase that time to, let us say, instead of 5, I'll say 15 seconds. Then only it will be clearly visible for us. See, it came here and it shows starting. That means it's waiting. Okay, there is nothing inside this sleep activity that this do. It is just suspending the process until the time whatever we have given there. So once the time was done, it will just pass it. So in which cases we'll be using this sleep activity? So whenever there is a requirement that your process has to wait for a specific amount of time, right? In a specific amount of time, you can use the sleep activity. Or sometimes, let us say you have to make your process wait until another process is completed. Okay, in that case also you can use this sleep activity so that you are pausing your process. Okay, or sometimes you are trying to log into any type of database or any kind of SAP or something. Let us say that's as SAP application is down for a few seconds. Okay, so maybe for during the retry, once it what let us say this is an SAP system and the login is failing. Okay, but you want to retry after few seconds, right? So you can use the sleep activity during in the retry process, and you can just let us say that you want to retry after 5 seconds. You mention you give 5 seconds here, and after that you can try to log in. Maybe on the second try or the third try, your login may be successful. Okay, so these are the cases where you can use the sleep activity. It's very simple. You just need to provide a time interval. What is that you want to pause this process? Okay, interval in milliseconds. It will accept only in milliseconds, whereas the timer activity will accept anything. Okay, millisecond, second, minute, hour, day, everything. The time interval unit is different. Every time the unit take sleep activity will be milliseconds only. Okay, and let us see another activity called inspector. Okay, so you see inspector in the general activity, in the general tab of inspect activity, there is something called all, right? All is there, and along with all I can see that timer, mapper and mapper2 is there. So it will not store it is not showing the log and start log, end log and sleep activity, because for the sleep we will not have any output. Okay, similarly for the end log also, we start log also we don't have logs, also we don't have any outputs. Because of for that reason, uh, this inspector activity is not showing any of these, that start log, end log and sleep activities. But this mapper, you see there is an output. Similarly timer activity, there is an output tab available. So whichever the activities that are capable of providing you the output, that output can be stored inside this inspector activity. This is also kind of one of the activity which is useful for debugging purpose, or if you want to store entire information of the process, or the data, the information of any particular activity within the process. You can make use of this inspector activity, where in the input tab you will be asked to provide a file name. The file name would be like, let's say that I'll be taking files. In this file let's say I'll delete this file and I'll create a new file called inspector. So I'll give this file. Okay, inspector.txt is what I'll give in the input tab of the inspector activity. So in this file, as of now, if you see the general activity, everything was there, right? All activities are there. Let's run and see what is that will be written into that file or loaded into the file. Oh, I have to wait the time or remove this feedback. You have to wait for 15 seconds. Okay, so now this was done. I don't want to discuss about the previous part. Let's discuss. Let's see only the inspector activity. Okay, so the output is, you see, whole information of this particular data was written in the output of the inspector activity. So let's go to our file and see. If you see this file, it says that start inspector output, right? The first thing is that this is the module properties. You see, module properties are written. Similarly, process instance variables, inspector input, mapper is there. What is the input that I have given for the map in mapper activity? John and Chicago. Similarly, sleep input, timer is there, and mapper 2 is there, mapper input is there, mapper 2, end log. This is the output. Okay, these are the mapper 2 output or the input. Okay, end log input and the process context. So everything related to the particular process has been loaded into this file, right? So you have to provide the file directory and the location, and then this file will be everything, yeah, all the data with related to all the data with related to the particular process will be loaded into this inspector file. Similarly, let us say I don't want the entire information, I just want the data which is for the mapper 2. I don't want all. Okay, I don't want all. So if I run it now, okay, let me reduce the sleep time because it's waiting a lot of time, right? Let's say I'll wait for just 1 second. Like 100 is also fine, so that it will not wait any time. Sorry. Now if you can see the file, if you see, now it is having only the information which is related to the mapper 2, not all the data, because here we have selected the mapper activity alone, right? Here if you see, I have selected only the mapper 2. That's the reason why the file is showing me the information related to the mapper 2 alone. Okay, so this is the use of inspector activity. Okay, so generally we use the inspector activity whenever you want to load the information related to the this process or any particular activity or all the activities in the particular process. Okay, so that all the activity or any activity should be before the inspector activity. You cannot load the information related to let us say I have another activity here. Let's say I have another mapper activity. I will not get this let me just stop it. I will not get this mapper 1 because inspector, any activities before the inspector activities can be loaded into the file. After inspector activity, it cannot load because there is no scope. Mapper 1 will not come into the scope of inspector. Okay, so if you want to load whatever the activities into the file, you should keep that before the inspector activity. Okay, yeah, this is about the inspector activity. Okay, so there are other general activities which we'll be discussing. Okay, if you see this confirm activity, we should discuss it when this is we'll use this confirm activity when we are dealing with the EMS activities. Okay, so we'll see this assign get shared variable and set shared variable. These are important for the variables. We'll see. Okay, so in our previous session we have seen the file activities and the overview of the studio and all, and now we have seen few of the general activities, and we'll see in the next session for and we'll connect in the next session for the variables and the groups, and few other how we connect to the database on the we see the JMS and all these things. Okay, thanks for joining.